Weren't we all a lot happier before social media existed? Is social media stripping us of our basic humanity, stunting our intellect, making us depressed, and irreparably damaging personal relationships? One of Facebook's earliest executives dropped a bombshell when he admitted that social media was programming its users and destroying the fabric of society.
I feel tremendous guilt. It literally is a point now where I think we have created tools that are ripping apart the social fabric of how society works. That is truly where we are. Your behaviors, you don't realize it, but you are being programmed. It was unintentional, but now you got to decide how much you're willing to give up.
Social media was designed to be addictive. It provides the same kind of dopamine hit that you get from smoking, drinking alcohol, or gambling.
We know that engagement with social media and our cell phones releases a chemical called dopamine. That's why when you get a text, it feels good, right? So, we've all had it where you're feeling a little bit down or feeling a bit lonely, and so you send out 10 texts to 10 friends, hi, 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 because it feels good when you get a response, right? Right? It's why we count the likes. It's why we go back 10 times to see if my Instagram is growing slower. Did I do something wrong? Do they not like me anymore? Right? The trauma for young kids to be unfriended, right? Because we know when you get a hit of dopamine, which feels good. It's why we like it. It's why we keep going back to it. Dopamine is the exact same chemical that makes us feel good when we smoke, when we drink, and when we gamble. In other words, it's highly, highly addictive.
We're so addicted. Our brains sometimes fool us into thinking a dopamine hit is imminent when it isn't. I'm talking about phantom vibration syndrome.
This means those people think the phone is vibrating when it's really not. And psychologists say these fake phone calls are all in your head. Those who are big-time talkers on the phone or who use the phone to text or tweet a lot, well, they say they feel these fake phone calls more often. And so do people who are anxious or insecure.
Next time you're in a car driving down a busy street, look out the window. Notice how many young people have their heads buried in their phones. Even in an environment where there are potential threats, obstacles, and things of interest to observe and absorb, they still can't tear themselves away. This addiction has overridden their basic survival mechanism of being aware of their surroundings in an open environment. That's how addicted they are.
I mean, look at the one on the right.
Do you have to make faces when you take selfies?
Wait, one more now.
Oh, there you go.
Better angle. Oh, check it. Did that come out okay?
That's the best one of the 300 pictures I've taken of myself today.
Every girl in the picture is locked into her phone.
Oh, Lord.
Every single one is dialed in. Welcome to parenting in 2015. They're all just completely transfixed by the technology.
Why are millennials particularly vulnerable to social media addiction? Because their parents and daycare instilled in them an endless, desperate compulsion for validation. This is the me generation. This is the generation with the lowest self-esteem ever. Hence the constant need for reassurance that they exist. What fulfills that need? Social media. This is a generation whose natural coping mechanisms are so eroded, they've adopted rampant narcissism as a form of stress relief. Where is that narcissism most rewarded? You guessed it, social media. Likes, shares and retweets are to a millennial what a pacifier is to a baby. It's literally infantilizing our brains. It's regressing us back to infanthood. And what's another trait of infanthood? Short attention spans. Our attention spans have been decimated by social media. We're kept in a perpetual state of distraction and disruption. This constant influx of new information prevents our brains from being able to process that info and send it into long-term memory. Do you ever wonder why your memory seems so much worse than it used to be? If you're constantly distracted by new information, you can't devote the required attentiveness to any one subject. So everything is just a superficial snapshot. Some of you probably got distracted 30 seconds into this video and started reading the comments. Our brains adapt physically to our changing environment. This is called neuroplasticity. Social media and the internet in general has rewired our brains to make us only capable of shallow thinking. Studies also show that the more distracted you are, the more difficult it is to feel empathy. Another casualty of social media. Social media also causes depression because people are seeing the carefully curated highlight reels of other people's amazingly interesting lives, then feeling inadequate and lonely when they compare it to their own. An added irony is that while millennials use social media to alleviate their stress, it's actually causing them more stress. The University of Queensland study found that quitting Facebook for just 5 days led to a noticeable drop in cortisol levels. Social media can also be blamed for the obsession with identity politics that's tearing apart the fabric of civil discourse. Real-world experience forms rounded characters. Social media draws us away from the real world. This vacuum of real-world experience causes confusion and identity crisis. Hence, 75 different genders. There's even a link between the rise in smartphone and social media use and the emergence of college campus snowflakes.
It short-circuits the brain, and we're starting to find that it has actual cognitive consequences, one of them being this sort of pervasive background hum of anxiety. Now, the canary in the coal mine for this issue is actually college campuses. If you talk to mental health experts on college campuses, they'll tell you, along with the rise of ubiquitous smartphone use and social media use among the students on the campus came an explosion of anxiety-related disorders.
Students who are bathed in this constant background hum of anxiety are so emotionally brittle, they're triggered by anything. The positives of social media, well, everyone has a voice. And while in principle this allows for the democratization of information, in practice it equates to billions of retards sharing pictures of their food and hurling vile insults at strangers for having the wrong opinion. It equates to maniacal witch hunt mobs destroying people's reputations and careers because they said something deemed offensive. And yes, I'm painfully aware of the irony of someone who has forged an identity partly thanks to social media, lecturing you about how terrible social media is. But this is as much an instructional video for me as it is for you. We're all addicts. We need to modify our behavior before it modifies us permanently. We have to escape this electronic ghetto. Here's a few things we can all do now. Turn off all non-essential notifications on your phone. Try and make a routine of only checking your messages and emails a maximum of 5 times a day. Less if possible. Use the internet like your parents use the internet. Go on there to do what you intend to do, then get off. Don't get distracted by 100 different strands. Don't surf the web. Try and be disciplined. Respect the value of your own time. Don't charge your phone next to your bed. Don't be pressured to check all the messages on all your accounts as soon as you wake up. Leave your phone in a different room to the one you're in at every opportunity. And if it's not absolutely essential for your career, just get off social media entirely. There's no point in being a public figure if you don't get any of the benefits of being a public figure. If you implement these changes, and I've got to implement them too, you'll be far happier, more productive, and a better person to be around. You'll be free of the background hum of anxiety and depression that social media perpetuates. 2018 is being described by some as the year of the neo-Luddite. An underground backlash against technology is brewing. More people than ever are beginning to feel that technological progress is not always beneficial. Violent anti-tech attacks are increasing. According to American philosopher John Zazan, something is going on. Zazan was a controversial supporter of the ideology of Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, although he condemned his actions. Kaczynski thought technological change had destabilized society, made life unfulfilling, and caused massive psychological suffering. While Kaczynski's response was deplorable, you'd be hard-pressed to deny that some of his fears have been realized. Professor Zerzan thinks the emergence of another Unabomber is inevitable. Others even fear the rise of Luddite terror groups to rival Islamic jihadists. But before we allow fringe extremists to fill the void, we need to reassert control over our impulses, our emotions, and the very structure of our brains. Social media is turning us into addicts, and it's time to change our habits before we all become hopeless junkies. Please click the big red button to subscribe. It really helps me when you do that. And click the bell to allow notifications so you never miss a new video.